Alright, this is the second video for the Unit 4 test remediation. I just went over and kind of explained a bit about the first two reading passages, and the next few questions are on that second reading passage that we looked at. So just a quick recall, we looked at the excerpt from The Poison Tree, A Tale of Hindu Life in Bengal. So question 7 was one of the most missed. It says, how does the point of view affect this story? And options are A, the limited first-person perspective allows the narrator to tell his story but leaves the reader with little information about the girl, her situation, or the wedding plans. This builds tension and suspense and keeps the reader guessing. That I can eliminate actually because we do know about the girl and her situation and the plans, and we're not guessing. B, the first person point of view creates intimacy as readers access the conflicting thoughts and emotions of the narrator. This helps readers to understand his struggle between what he feels is right and the expectations of his patriarchal culture. And if you're not quite sure, if we look back at the text, it's not written in first person. I'll go back in just a minute, but when I have the pen, I can't do that in this format. So I'm eliminating B. I'll show you that we actually have an omniscient point of view, which describes the history of the characters and their thoughts and actions. This enables readers to understand the family unit and the complex factors that influence the characters' choices. Okay, so like I said, if I come back here to our excerpt, we do have a little bit of a writing from the letters back and forth, okay? But further in, we don't have a first-person narrator. We have that omniscient narrator who is explaining everything. All right, back to the questions. And so it looks like it erases whenever I remove from it. So just a reminder, this is the correct answer. Now, question 8, which sentence best describes a theme of the poison tree? Well, a theme needs to be a lesson that can be applied to our lives, right? And taken out of the story in general. But if we take a look at our options, beauty can be dangerous if not guarded and protected. B, family and reputation must be protected at all costs. Or C, giving help and kindness to others is better than receiving it. So where would we see beauty can be dangerous if not guarded and protected? I'm trying to think. And in that story, there's not a whole lot about beauty. They do say that the young girl is beautiful, but there's not a focus on guarding and protecting that. There is a little message about how, let's see, Tara Sharon's mother is beautiful and that she does end up going off with another person. But I wouldn't say that is the overall, what we walk away with from that. So I would eliminate A. B, family and reputation must be protected at all costs. So we learn about Tara Sharon and his background with Surja Mackay. Now, Surja's father kind of took him under his wings and helped to raise him and educate him. And Surja, therefore, looks at him like a little brother. And in the story, she wants to arrange a marriage for him with this young orphan girl. But up till that point, no one has been good enough for her younger brother. And now she feels that there's someone that is good enough for him. So I do think that a little bit about reputation in there and family. Let me see what B is. Giving help and kindness to others is better than receiving it. Well, while I agree with this, I don't feel like that's portrayed in this story much. Yes, there is kindness given and shown in various ways. When they find the orphan, when Njendra finds the orphan and brings her home, that's kind. When they decide to arrange the marriage and ask each other's blessings or however, you look at it, ask for permission, that's kind. But I don't see that as a message per se in this one. So I'm going to eliminate C, and the best theme or best sentence describing theme there is family and reputation must be protected at all costs. All right. Moving on to our next two questions that were most missed. Why is Tara Sharon interested in women's rights? And this was question number 9. Um, A. Serge's compassion and kindness encourages Tara to abandon his patriarchal beliefs and campaign for women's rights. I know we start to learn about his advocacy for women's rights, but I'm not sure it's coming from her compassion and kindness to encourage him. I think it has to do with his background, seeing his mother and her situation, and all that he was left with. B, his mother's struggles and flight influenced his current writings. He considers the social restrictions and mistreatment of women as a cause for her abandonment. Ding, ding, ding. That's kind of what I just mentioned, wasn't it? But why is he interested in women's rights? Let's look at C as an option 2. Tara has no women in his home, so it is easy for him to have liberal views since it does not directly affect him. So think about all of these. Why is he interested in women's rights? I would say he's been influenced by his past for sure. However, the fact that he has no women in his own home, he's not necessarily seeing the other side of things. He wants that liberation, that freedom, because he sees what's happening outside of his home. Okay? Although, yes, his mother struggled and she walked out on him, he is not necessarily, we have no information that says he's looking at that and saying, oh boy, it was mistreatment that led her to abandon me, right? We don't have that information. So we have to go with the information that we do have, the fact that he does not have anyone in his life to, convey that. And then question 10. Based on this excerpt, how does Indian society view education? A well-educated person is important and valued. B, education is only for the wealthy. The lower class have no use for it. Or C, anyone who learns to speak English is considered a god. So when I look back into the text, I do think they value education, but I don't think it's only for the wealthy. I didn't see that. I saw that even the Tara, when he was orphaned, he was provided with some education, and that they're trying to educate those others that are in the village. So that's not it. Considered a god, I know at one point they mentioned that he was like a god because he was able to teach them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that just because he learned English, he's considered a god. So a well-educated person is important and valued. All right, so we just went over 7, 8, 9, and 10 from that passage. I'm going to move into our third passage at this time, and that is from In a Native Village from Redan, the Devil, and Other Stories. And this story is set in the late 1800s on an island off the coast of Australia. The narrator is a trader who recently settled on the island. Pigs were the next trouble, my own pigs, and the pigs of the general public. When I landed on the island, I had brought with me from Sydney a lady and a gentleman pig of exceedingly high lineage. They were now the proud and happy parents of 7 beautiful little black and white piglets, and at any hour of the day one might see numbers of natives looking over my wall at the graceful little creatures as they chased one another over the grass, charged at nothing, and came to a dead stop with astonishing rapidity and a look of intense amazement. So it sounds like the narrator is very fond and proud of these little piggies. A lot of word choice to show that. Graceful, astonishing, rapidity, intense amazement, right? One fatal day I let them out, thinking they would come to no harm. Well, if you just put fatal, that sounds like there's going to be harm, as their parents were with them. As they did not return at dusk, I sent you, the under-nurse, to search for them. She came back and told me in a whisper that the father and mother pig were rooting up a sweet potato patch belonging to the local chief. The piglets said she had failed to discover. Enjoying secrecy, I sent you and Harry to chase the parents home. This was effected after considerable trouble, but the owner of the potato patch claimed $2 damage. I paid it, feeling his claim was just. So, Mom and Dad Pig got into some trouble rooting up the sweet potato patch, and so he gets caught, the pigs get caught, and he has to pay $2. Not a big deal. Next morning, the 7 piglets were returned one by various native children. Each piglet had, according to their accounts, been in a separate garden and done considerable damage, and because they, the piglets, were the property of a good and just man, the owners of the gardens would not hurt nor even chase them, etc. Glad to recover the squealing little wonders at any cost, I gave each lying child $0.25. So, what this reveals to me is the narrator realizes that the children are lying. They're not telling the truth about the fact that these piglets did so much damage. Okay. Next day, I had a piece of ground walled in with lumps of coral and placed the porcine family inside. Then I wrote to the counselors, asking them to notify the people that if any of the village pigs came inside my fence and rooted abysmal holes in my ground, as had been their habit hitherto, I should demand compensation. His Honor, the Chief Justice, stated in court that this was only fair and right. The white man had paid for the damage done by his pigs, and therefore he was entitled to claim damages if the village pigs caused him trouble. I had previously squared His Honor with the promise of a male sucker. So basically, he's saying, I've put my pigs in this wall and I'm closing them in. If any other pig comes into my property, I'm just demanding compensation for anything that happens. One day, the 7 young pigs escaped from their mother and went out for a run on the village green. They were at once assailed as detestable foreign devils by about 243 gaunt razorback village sows. That's a lot. And were only rescued from a cruel death after every one had lost its tail. Why is it that pigs of different breeds always bite off each other's tails? I claimed 50 cents per tail and was awarded $3.50 in damages to be paid by the community generally. The community refused to pay. His Honor then notified by the town crier that I was at liberty to shoot any pig that broke into the station grounds. I put a cartridge into a Snider rifle and told my servants to call me if they heard a grunt in the night. So he's kind of at war and at odds with the village people. His pigs got out again, caused some problems. The village pigs, of course, are terrible things, and they bit the tails off of his little piglets. And so he's just preparing for the next issue. 3 days after this, as I was discussing theology and baked fowl one night with the local teacher in his own house, a boy burst in and said that there was a strange pig in my garden devouring my crop of French beans. In 2 minutes I was back in my house, snatched up the Snider, and ran to the garden wall. There was the brute, a great black and white beast, the biggest native pig I have ever seen. His back was turned, but hearing my steps, he went about and faced me. 'Twas a bright moonlight night, and the bullet plugged him fair between the eyes. Over he rolled without a kick. Then I heard a shriek or laughter and saw half a dozen girls scuttling away among the cocoa palms. A horrible suspicion nearly made me faint. Jumping over the wall, I examined the defunct and could scarce forbear to shed a tear. So why someone is laughing about him shooting the pig? 'Twas mine own prized black Australian boar, daubed over with splashes of coral lime whitewash, and the whitewash came from a tub full of it, with which the natives had that morning been whitening the walls of the newly built village church. The one-eyed old scoundrel of a deacon told me next day it was a judgment on me. So it seems like the natives got him back because they were at odds for sure. He wanted money for what damage their pigs caused. They want compensation for what his pigs did. And so they ended up painting his pig to disguise it. And he didn't realize that. He ends up shooting his own prized pig. And this was judgment on him for being kind of so ridiculous about the whole matter. It could have been just simply, keep your pigs to yourself, we'll keep our pigs to ourselves, but he kind of made it a big ordeal. And so there was a little more chaos and resistance, I'd say, from the natives.